Yeah, hey everybody, it's Steve Harris here, and I wanted to provide some context and color to the discussion board for Module 3 this week as we're focusing on Pat Summit. And first question is being whether or not I'm in alignment with Pat's family model. Is that conducive for success? And I would say yes, absolutely. Anytime that you've got a team that is able to get to know each other beyond its outer shell, you're able to break down barriers. You're able to establish trust amongst each other. That's going to pave the way for individual conversations where you can hold each other up. You can encourage each other, motivate each other, hold each other accountable, of course, and that just really kind of changes the dynamics from making it just a collection of silos and not to a formal family unit. And that was something that you could see was important to Pat, just in some of the simple things about wanting to go by Pat as opposed to going by Coach Summit, right? So, and of course, it's been well documented that anytime team members feel as though that they belong to something, that they're bought into whatever the identified objectives are, that productivity is inevitably going to increase over environments that don't. So that, of course, that's going to create cohesion and trust within each other, not only between the team, but also within the coaching staff. And that was something that Pat had mentioned as well, just in terms of it just removes any potential for any backstabbing. So when I look at barriers, well, probably one of the first and foremost, we live in an I culture now. We don't live in a we culture, sadly. And so I think of things like just the impact in college football of the NIL, the name, image, and likeness, and and things like the transfer portal, right? So that is geared 100% towards what's in it for the player, not for the team. And so, of course, coaches need to learn how to navigate through that because every year you've got teams that are essentially having to reset because you've got people coming in, people transferring out. They can go play for Alabama and drive a nice car, then they can play at another college, or it's just it gets really challenging to keep that family unit together, even when it's established, right? Because again, we have some of the programs now that are out there that really make it difficult. Some of the pros and cons of making hard work your passion. Well, in the same way that Pat mentions that she's going to beat you because she'll outwork you, those who put in the extra time and effort are going to have that competitive advantage over those who don't. When you're striving for excellence, it's going to require discipline. It's going to require strong work ethics. And in some cases, that's going to involve some sacrifice as well. To win a national championship in any college sport doesn't just happen with luck or by chance. It occurs when if it's in an individual sport, that person puts in the time and effort, or if it's a team sport, they put the time and effort in too. So in terms of cons, of course, one of the biggest ones is just the opportunity for burnout. And if it's in a sporting event, risk of injury. We learned about that through Kelly Jolly, was one of the examples that Pat mentioned, where she was working herself to death, more or less, and she kept getting injured. And but it was one of her star point guards. So if you're going down that path and you get to a point where you're no longer just it's your passion, but it's now your obsession, then you've got other ports, I guess, other components of your life that definitely are going to be susceptible to suffering. And I've already talked about the mental or the physical challenges, but of course you've got mental health issues that come into play. Relationships are going to suffer potentially, whether it's current relationships, family or friends, romantic relationships, what have you. Or that's there. It could really prohibit the ability to start new friendships too, right? So there is an impact on that, and just not having a healthy work life balance because you're so intently focused that you miss out on other things in life as well. So as a leader myself, so Pat, she recruited players that were like-minded. My methodology, I guess, or my ideology, if you will, would be similar. in terms of sharing the same work ethic and values. Um, and in terms of recruitment as a coach, I mean, as Pat put it, she was a great dictator. Myself, I would be on the other side of the spectrum, but I would still look for the same outcome, meaning that my approach would be more from a servant leader point of view, where I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to cast the vision. I'm going to have a plan for the team. I'm going to encourage that collaboration, but I'm also going to be intentional. And this is something that Pat did later on in her coaching career as well. But I'm going to be intentional to get to know my team on an individual basis as well as collectively. Because if you get to know their motivations and you know what fulfills them personally, then you're able to leverage that, and you're understand. You guess you have insight on how to push people's buttons in a positive way, and not to abuse that in a negative way. So that would be my approach to where I'm still going to be able to motivate and inspire, but I'm going to do that when I have knowledge of what those levers are by each person. And the final question is, what would happen if I'm so heavily focused? Like what are the downsides? What's the potential above and beyond what we've already discussed? So if a coach or a leader is so intently focused on squeezing every out of work or every ounce of work out of the team, it may end up being counterproductive to the end goal. It may lead to trust in the leader or coach being compromised. Resentment might begin to set in. It could lead to disengagement. Ultimately, the negative outcome could be either a loss of a game, or it could be losing a player or an important team member. They might quit altogether, right? So you have to be very cognizant of how hard you push, knowing when to push and when to pull back. And I think that's actually something that Pat mentioned as well. So, also as Pat mentioned, there were several national championships that were lost due to overworking during the stretch. So it doesn't mean that hard work isn't acceptable, because hard work's going to be required, but it just needs to be tapered. And that's something that Pat really subscribed to towards, again, the back half of her coaching career, and something that I definitely would subscribe to as well. So those are my responses. I look forward to yours, and hope this message finds you well, and we will see you again.